Ho, ho, holy crap, are these gonna be bad. Earlier this year, I did a video on the worst movies that I could find. And the way that I did it was taking the film's score on IMDb, and then I added it together with the score on Letterboxd, and tried to find the lowest possible ratings that I could. Well, we're doing that again. Only this time with a holiday slant, excluding the terrible Krampus ones that I've already covered. They are also pretty low rated. For some reason, I've decided to spend my holiday season watching this list of what I'm calling the worst Christmas films that I could find. Number 10. We're going to kick this one off with 2018's Mrs. Claus that gives us a sorority pledge being humiliated, and she's Mel Heflin, who's been in a ton of the low-budget horrors that I featured in the past, like the Plan 9 remake, Return to Splatter Farm, and she was in one of the Polonia Camp Bloods. After killing her abuser, she hangs herself, and we cut to 10 years later, and the girl who was murdered has a little sister that now joins the sorority. They start getting threatening messages, and a masked killer shows up, as does Angela's, the girl who did the murdering, mother, I guess giving us a suspect. It's Christmas time again, and Brink Stevens shows up, and our killer wears a Mrs. Claus outfit, which, you know, title, and does kill with Christmas-oriented items like this giant candy cane. It's got a 2.0 on Letterboxd and a 3.5 on IMDb, which isn't too shabby all things considered, but don't worry, it's literally all downhill from here. And even though this one's not too horribly rated, there are a lot of scenes here with people just kind of sitting around and talking. Honestly, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill stalker film with the Christmas element thrown in there, just with more chit-chat than usual, and a villain that has what kind of looks like the mask from Curtains with the Santa hat on it. When she makes her big appearance at the end, I mean, look how non-menacing this is, like come on. And yeah, the big mystery of the film is really not that hard to figure out. There's like one suspect in the whole film, and we've all seen Friday the 13th, and hell, even seen To All a Good Night, which basically has the exact same premise, but there's at least one little curveball in there, I guess, even though that is also kind of similar to the one from To All a Good Night. Number 9. Let's continue with a movie from 2016 called The Elf, which also has been released as The Enchanted. It's got Nick here, who inherits this old toy shop that appears to only make these disturbing looking dolls, and he finds this box that has an inscription on the side and reads it aloud. People, I don't know how many more times I need to say this. Don't read things out loud, especially old items you find somewhere. Well, inside is a doll and instructions that there's a hunt going on, and he'll be allowed to remove one name from the naughty list, which he finds on a piece of paper that he also reads aloud. What did I just say? Nick has a fiance, and everyone in this kind of sounds like they have an accent and are hiding it, I think. The elf randomly shows up at their house, and a naughty list shows up in his pocket. On Christmas Eve, they have a surprise party for Nick, which he doesn't take well because of some past trauma on the holiday, and of course, there's a big snowstorm. The elf starts to show up and take people out, and family drama kicks in as well. And the little guy is sometimes done with CGI, and it's not terrible. And he does end up doing a bunch of killing. And this one was directed by Tristan Price, who also did one of the Mummy movies that I covered back in my Insane Mummy movie. And I guess most people's complaints about this one center around it taking too long to get to the action, since the elf doesn't really make itself known until around the 45-minute mark, with most of the stuff before that being family drama. And whereas the acting is never quite terrible, it's also never really that good either. It's one of our highest rated ones on here though, since it had a 3.7 on IMDb and a 1.4 on Letterboxd, giving it a 5.1 combined score. But I'm gonna give this one a hard time for just not being Christmassy enough. I mean, there's hints here and there. There's a caroler scene that's pretty fun, and some wrapping paper shenanigans, but the Yule element could have been a bigger part. and that total non-ending doesn't help. Number 8. Okay, pity me, because now I'm moving on to 2016's Santa Claus, a horror story, and I'm already regretting picking this one because finding any footage that I can use is a difficult task. And how do phones ring in this universe? A woman is seeking therapy to deal with her experience of being raped by Santa Claus, and this one is by Bill Zabub. Yes, Bill Zabub, the director of the all-time classic Dick Shark. And I admit that I've seen several other of his films as well, so I know what to expect. People are either naked or almost naked pretty much every minute of the film, so there's just a bunch of scenes of people standing around talking, and then long drawn-out assault scenes in slow motion. And when I tell you that that's what this is, that's pretty much all that this is. There's segments where it's just Bill himself discussing theology and the origins of Santa Claus, intercut with what amounts to Suicide Girl photo shoots. And yeah, that's pretty much all this is, and if you've seen any of Zabub's films before, this is on par with those. It seems like most are not that into it because it's got a pretty low 1.5 on Letterboxd, and a 3.6 on IMDb for a score of 5.1. And one thing I will say about his stuff, that if you're a fan of a pretty specific type of metal, you'll be pleased since those aforementioned Suicide Girl shoots are accompanied by some jammers of what I like to call Cookie Monster music. And I don't think this was planned, but it looks like he was filming himself here and some kid accidentally crashed their scooter near him and he just put it in the movie. And if any of what I described sounds appealing, check it out. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of Zabub, but the guy has his niche and his formula and his audience, and I'll definitely respect that. Like I don't hate watching his films because he does have a modicum of knowing what he's doing, and they're certainly weird. But I will say that the Santa and Christmas aspect of this one is extremely minor. There's some Santa talk mixed in with the religious stuff, but it's not really that vital to the film. Number 7. Next up is one that fared a little better, and it's 2012's Christmas Twister, which starts off with a massive tornado in Texas that occurs around the holiday season. And I'm really sad that I got a corrected version because I guess all of the original versions of the films got the main title wrong. They actually spelled it Christmas Twister, and it ran like that. Thankfully, I was able to find a different version of it that had the misspelling for you, so you can laugh at it as heartily as I did. Johnny Rico is here as a meteorologist, and oh, I guess this was on Pure Flix, so I'm expecting a low budget and a whole lot of Jesus. It's directed by Peter Sullivan, and going through his IMDb resume, you'll notice that almost every other film has the word Christmas in it, and this one is more of an action movie than a horror film, but come on, there's no way that I'm not including a movie that misspells its own goddamn title on a terrible Christmas movie list. Turns out another big storm is a-brewing, and in all of its $10 CG glory, and there's not a ton of Christmas stuff going on, but like there's Christmas music playing at the mall, and people are wearing Santa hats, and I guess this one fared a touch better since it had a 1.6 on Letterboxd and only a 3.4 on IMDb for a total of 5.0, and Victoria Pratt is in this one as well, as is this amazing sequence right here. And hey, for at least a little bit, good old Creighton Duke pops in, but oh boy, is this boring. It's just a standard basic sci-fi level tornado movie with very, very little to do with Christmas, and I'm not even sure why I bothered to include it on this list. Oh yeah, number 6. All right, how about Christmas Sleigh from 2015, which has more Christmas in its first 5 minutes than Christmas Twister had in its entire runtime. It's set in England and has a guy dressed as Santa killing a couple, and then let's talk about how dumb this girl is. She sees this guy in a Santa suit with like no beard or whatever, covered in blood in her house, and she's all like,
Santa, have you brought our presents?
I mean, if he doesn't kill her, she's not gonna last out in the real world for very long anyway. And that whole thing leads to possibly the most low energy fight scene of all time.
Let him go! Let him go now!
It then jumps to a year later, and there's a group of girls going on a Christmas trip to the mountains. And the Santa guy is, I guess, in a sanitarium where he just walks around and stuff. And when he's given his medication, they don't check to make sure if he's swallowed it. And when he pushes a guard down, he literally doesn't react at all. He just sits there. Then there's the typical people up in the cabin while Santa stalks them. But oh man, does he take forever to really do anything. In the meantime, they make sure to have their cast just stand around in their underwear to the point of even when they're going outside to find a friend, this one just puts a jacket on. How about, pants? Honestly, it's really by the numbers, and the kills are dull, and the characters are terrible, so I can see why it got the low ratings. It did get a 2.0 on Letterboxd, but only a 2.5 on IMDb for a total of 4.5, and honestly, it's not really worth the time. Number 5. Now let's check out the cinematic classic that is 2003's Psycho Santa, which gives us its title right off the bat with a guy in a Santa suit stalking a girl in a junkyard. But then it switches into, I guess, a sort of anthology format as this couple is on a trip and the husband starts telling his wife a story about some women going to a cabin, and for some reason this is the outfit this one is wearing, like they say it's a relaxing Christmas slumber party and there's only like 3 people invited, and yet she looks like she's going clubbing. Then they hang out in lingerie because that's obviously how women getting comfy and hanging out on vacation dress. And I mean, the only thing missing from making this one just like reality is a pillow fight. And I'm not joking, after like 15 minutes of following these girls around at this cabin, watching them shower and then dance, the scene just ends like this.
Wow, so Sarah was in the packages the whole time?
Those weren't tags, they were labels. No to or from, just Sarah. Her head was in one box, a leg in the other.
I get it. What happened to the other 2?
Same thing, the guy killed them, dismembered them, wrapped them up, and put them under the tree.
Then there's another story involving robbers, and they kill a woman, but she has a monster locked up in her basement. The end? And oh man, this is like a half hour in, and I'm not sure what the point is. It's pretty bottom of the barrel, and although it had a 2.3 on Letterboxd, which is a little better than some of the other ones above, but only a 2 on IMDb for a total score of 4.3, and it truly deserves it. I guess the stories are all connected, and the thing in the basement is a kid named Chris, and he's psychotic, and after the robbers let him out, he kills a Santa and takes his outfit, and it's really just a random collection of scenes and less a movie. And this one was written and directed by Peter Keir, who directed this and one other movie called Woofaka, and then maybe said, oh hey, I'm not that great at this, and retired from filmmaking. And guys, you know that I have a pretty high tolerance for things, and let me tell you, this one is tough to get through. It manages to make a killer Santa boring. That is a true feat. Number 4. Our next entry is one I'm actually looking forward to, and it's 2021's Hell on a Shelf, and it's a Polonia jam, so I'm down. It sets up a haunted house and some robbers go in only to get killed, and this is done in a pseudo-documentary style with a team of paranormal investigators hired to check out the house, with Mark Polonia himself playing one of the guys. And he only co-directed this one, paired with his son, Anthony Polonia, and the legend of the house is that a young boy died there back in the 1970s, and his spirit is haunting the house. And they try to communicate with him, and they reveal that the boy was killed while fighting his brother over a toy elf doll. And that's pretty much all this one is. which seems to be why it gets a ton of flack, with the reviews leading to a 2.4 on Letterboxd, which isn't that bad, but only a 1.8 on IMDb for a combined score of 4.2. And if you're telling me that you think this is worse than either Psycho Santa or Christmas Sleigh, or hell, even Chris Dam's Twister, then I'm confused, because this is actually kind of fun to watch and decently made. Although if I have a complaint here, it's that it's really not that Christmassy outside of the elf doll. And yeah, I think if you saw the box art and are expecting a Christmas story about a killer elf toy, you're gonna be extremely disappointed. And I guess I understand being mad about it, about that, but considering that this feels like watching an episode of a ghost hunting show with Mark at the forefront, who's actually pretty fun to watch. And I actually enjoyed this quite a bit, more than anything else on this list, that's for sure. Although the ending definitely crosses the threshold of the found footage stuff, since there's several camera moments that don't seem to come from any of the actors. Number 3. We go down now to 2009's Deadly Little Christmas, which starts with Felissa Rose and a flashback to Christmas Day 15 years ago. And let's see. Holiday setting, flashback to 15 years ago, unseen killer with a knife and a POV shot. I wonder what the inspiration was. Plus, this is painfully clearly just one of those toy retractable knives, and like you can see that it's simply going back into the handle, which is hilarious. It then goes to present day, and Devin is now grown up, and his mom visits, and for some reason, he's not allowed to meet his sisters. And of course, doesn't talk anymore, and this scene just seems to go on forever. Of course, Devin escapes and puts on a mask to go after his sisters. And did anyone stop and just say, hey, this is all sounding a touch familiar? The funny thing is that it's pretty clear from very, very early on that they're trying to lead up to a twist here, which is possibly the most obviously telegraphed plot point since Goodnight Mommy. There's a bunch of vaguely familiar faces, like the main girl Taylor is from Transmorphers, and this security guard, who there's no way you won't remember from The Amazing Bulk. And I guess I should point out that every kill in this movie is done with the same $5 retractable knife from the intro, really making the most out of that prop money. It's pretty low on the list with a mere 1.5 on Letterboxd and a 2.6 on IMDb, adding up to a 4.1, and I'll give it this, I guess, because it's pretty terrible, but it's at least a movie with coherent plot and characters. It's a super derivative concept and just a movie we've seen a million times before and done better, but compared to a couple of the other ones here, at least it feels like a film. A film with one of the most insane death scenes that I have ever seen. Like, what was that? Number 2. Getting close to the bottom now, we hit up 2011's Snow Shark, Ancient Snow Beast, and oh boy, Christmas and sharks, how can we go wrong? The animals from a region are all going missing, and it appears to be the work of a prehistoric shark that travels through the snow, and then jumps ahead 12 years, and the attacks are happening again. And the town is aware of it, and one guy claims to have killed it 12 years ago. And oh my god, look at this fin prop going through the snow. That's pretty amazing. There's some Jaws parallels as they don't let the town know enough and people get eaten. And oh, what a surprise, there's a younger, more science-oriented expert, a sort of big game hunter character, and a shifty mayor. And you know he's the mayor because he has a world's greatest mayor mug. A Santa suit lets us know that it's around Christmas, which is so far pretty much all of the holiday link that there's been. And when we finally get a peek at the shark, it's, it's something else, all right. And this film is the work of Sam Qualiana, who wrote and directed the film and also plays the character of Mike Evans. And this one got a 1.8 on Letterboxd, which I guess is about par for the others on this list, but only pulled in a 1.9 on IMDb, which gives it a 3.7, our first film here with less than a combined 4. There's a sort of supernatural element where they reveal that the shark is actually a demon, which, yeah, I mean, it's a shark on land burrowing through snow. Supernatural kind of seemed like the way that they were going. And it's another one that seems kind of amusing due to the silliness of the shark stuff, but it's a little too few and far between, with town drama making up the most of the runtime. It's a little dull and the acting is pretty wooden, and this was adapted from a short they had previously made, and honestly, a short would work better since it doesn't really sustain the runtime. Number 1. Our last film on this list is sort of a double whammy because it's Elves from 2018. Now, there was a previous film called Elves from 1989 that some people may say belongs on this list, but that movie's awesome, so it's nowhere near this episode. And instead, oh yes, this is a sequel to The Elf, the movie I talked about earlier. It starts with some stellar kid actors.
It's not in here.
Of course not, because Christmas is stupid.
No, it's not.
Santa's not real.
You're lying. Yes, he is. I'm gonna tell Mom.
And there's a doll here, and yep, it's an elf. One kid gets possessed and kills his brother, and I'm pretty sure that they actually just put a kid in a real oven, which I'm sure was handled with total care and was not a genuine on-set safety hazard whatsoever. Then there's a party in what looks like an old warehouse or something, and I don't get why, because all these people are in their late 20s or so, and it's not like they're high school kids looking for a place to party. I'm sure one of these people has a house or something. But then this girl coughs up a rock, and I'm not making this up. She coughs up a whole rock that they say is coal, and then literally no one mentions it again. She even says,
Everybody's just going to ignore the fact that I had a rock in my drink.
And yeah, they just move on to a game. It's similar to the first film, I guess, in that they write a naughty list and that elf puppet is there, and they're told that they have to do what the elf says, and if they don't, then they're killed by a sinister force that I guess also turns their face into a Snapchat filter smile. So, I guess the elf dolls just possess people and cause chaos.
This sounds like the movie Truth or Dare, except with Snapchat filters.
We know. And now we know you know. And you letting us know that you know doesn't make this any less egregious. And yeah, this doesn't really have much in common with the first film outside of using one or two of the props. And for some reason, this is listed on IMDb under what I guess is the working title, which is Mrs. Miracle? That was the working title. Mrs. Miracle. Let that roll off your tongue and wonder, just wonder, what the hell were they thinking? Who sat there and wrote down Mrs. Miracle and we're like, yep, that's what we're calling this one. They referenced the first film, but now this lady, I guess, has to keep adding names to the naughty list every year. No reason is really given as to why or whatever, but who cares if we can do stupid CG faces, right? Then, as if they didn't have enough plot elements going on at one time, they just throw in a masked figure to do some killing too, and holy crap, this has a 1.6 on Letterboxd and only a 1.9 on IMDb, so a total of 3.4. And it deserves it. It's just such a jumble of things that don't add up to anything, and no plot points seem to connect to each other, and I have no clue what the idea was here. Like, they keep talking about the elves, like they're important to the plot or whatever, but they factor in so little. And then you've got random stuff like this support group who spends some time just talking about what matters for Christmas before just getting killed. Like, these guys weren't on that naughty list game. What the hell is going on here? I mean, I know I wasn't paying real close attention to this one, but it's not like the story's that complicated. Look at this guy in the Halloween mask, and it's clearly a cheap mask. What's it doing here? How is this connected to the elves? Or the girl with the baseball bat? Do I care? Do you? Trust me on this. If you have to choose, always pick the 89 Elves. And even if you've seen that one and you think that it's terrible, still pick it. So there you have it, everybody. 10 horrible Christmas movies to get you through your holiday. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a good weekend, no matter what you celebrate, no matter what you do, no matter how you spend this weekend. I hope that you at least get some good quality family time and enjoy some time off where you can watch terrible movies like these. Yeah, if you've seen any of these and you think they're garbage, or if you actually like them, or if you want to defend them like I did with Hell on a Shelf, tell me in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of these. I think Psycho Santa is the one that people tend to love to pick on. Tell me that in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, of course, hit the like button. A gift that you can give to me would be to hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You could also possibly go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines, like these guys over here. I like to think of them as my elves. But yeah, thank you very much for watching the videos. I hope you've enjoyed this little holiday treat, and I'll see you very, very soon in the near future for another great video. Thanks a lot, guys, and happy holidays.